Well, finally doing it. Finally getting around to it. So, welcome friends and fans to the mid-thoughts on Final Fantasy VII or something, I don't know. But essentially, I am 30 hours into Final Fantasy VII. I am on the second disc. I actually haven't played it in a really long time. I need to get back to it, but school started not that long ago, so I don't know when that's going to happen. But I figured I should talk about how I feel about the game now. Just to get it out of the way, so that's what I'm gonna do. And part of this will also probably be me talking about Crisis Core, because I actually just finished that shortly before school started, and I cried. It's a really good game, and I would highly suggest it. But to just get into how I feel about Final Fantasy VII now that I've played it for so long, I genuinely do enjoy playing the game. There have been some things that were a little annoying, but in general, there was really nothing bad that I can say about it. The gameplay is good, it's fun, the battles are fun, the music is amazing. Considering how old the game is, I honestly can't say anything bad about the graphics, because that's like really good for 97. And then of course, if you look at the way 8 was in 99, and then 9 in 2000, 10 in 2001, all the way towards 15, which is coming out this month, I believe, actually, which I'm super excited for. I'm really excited to see the movie as well. I think Kingsglaive, I think that's how it's pronounced, is going to be really good. But, like, I can't say anything about the quality of the game on that front, at least. The music is well composed, the gameplay is pretty alright considering how old it is. The graphics are good for the time that it came out. I also am not necessarily a big graphics person, so, I mean, I'm not going to be totally picky. But when it comes to story, there are some things that kind of bothered me. The biggest thing that bothered me was the push for the love triangle between Tifa, Cloud, and Aerith. That was a little forced, to say the least. Because you go to that, the Temple of the Ancients, and you have to go and find the Black Materia, and Aerith's like, "Hey, Cape Sis, how compatible are me and Cloud?" And I'm like, oh my god, shut the fuck up. And at the time, I was like, Cloud and Tifa and Zack and Aerith, like, duh. If you're gonna have any ships, the two that are most likely gonna be in it. But I've since kind of stopped being so hardcore for Cloud and Tifa because of something that happened later. Because as we all know, Sephiroth gets the Black Materia, or not as we all know. As anyone who's played the game or at least knows the story probably knows. Sephiroth gets the Black Materia. Cait Sith. But no, this was before the Tifa thing. You find out Cait Sith is a spy while you're at the Golden Saucer. And while you're also at the Golden Saucer, Tifa comes to your room in the middle of the night and you go on this like date or something. In the book it says Aerith, but then it's like, if you were mean to her, then someone else would come to the room. It's like, I wasn't mean to Aerith. I just don't want there to be a Cloud-Aerith romance. And in all honesty, I'd rather there not be a romance in 7, or at least not be something that's so utterly important, because I feel like you could have gotten the same effect of Aerith's death without trying to implement any romantic feelings between her and Zack, or Cloud. Her and Zack. Her and Zack were really good together. I should probably honestly talk about Crisis Core in a different video. But, just, now that that's out of the way, I guess, Tifa comes to your room, you go on this date or whatever, she's gonna tell Cloud she loves him, and then she chickens out. And, like, I have nothing against, like, Cloud and Tifa being together. I honestly don't have anything against Cloud and Aerith being together. I think the problem is, in a lot of Final Fantasy games, or at least for me, from what I've heard, there's a lot of games where they try and push the romantic aspect too far. In 13, I do believe there's no romance, but my opinion of 13 is not exactly the best. Currently, when I actually sit down and just play it, even if it's only a little bit of it, my opinion may change. But currently, I don't think that highly of 13. I don't think it's a bad game by any means, because, like, it's a Final Fantasy game. If it was bad, Square would have gotten fucking roasted for that a long time ago. But 13, I don't think has any romance. I don't know about any of the other ones. But look at it. For the ones that I know, in 7 there's the Cloud, Tifa, Aerith thing. In 8 there's Squall and Rinoa. Which, that one, honestly, I love Squall. And I want Squall to be happy, so honestly, I personally don't care. That one, it could be the worst, like, build-up ever, and I'd still probably be okay with it, just because I want Squall to be happy. And in 10, of course, there's the push for Titus and Yuna, which of course gets pushed even further in 10 too. And I feel like there's so many Final Fantasy games where they try and push romance where it really doesn't need to be. And, I don't know, it just feels really weird. Because I have played a fair share of games, and it's only really the Final Fantasy ones that I've ever gotten this feeling. In Dragon Quest VIII, there's no push for romance. There's the flirting between Angelo and Jessica. Well, it's one-sided. But that's just because Angelo flirts with everyone. And in Dragon Quest IX, there really isn't no romance at all. And none of the Legend of Zelda games, as far as I know, really push for a romance. I think it's just implication. You know, I feel like it's just implied that Link and Zelda, you know, want to be together. I don't know. Of course, none of the Pokemon games have romance in them, but that's just because Pokemon. Though, I think it would be really cool if they were to make a game, or someone, I don't know. It would be great if Game Freak could make it, but who knows. I just think it would be really cool if there would be a game that was made where you get to choose, like, who is your rival out of this group of people, and who's, like, your traveling partner, and all these different things, where it kind of is the same thing as in the show. Except, like, Ash doesn't really choose a rival, but, like, he gets to choose, you know, who's in your, or who's in his party, and who travels with you, and all that, and I think that's really cool, and I think it would be really awesome if they could implement something like that. Or if someone could make a game that was like that, I don't know. But there isn't a push for romance in the Pokemon games, or any game that I can think of. Like, Crisis Core even, it wasn't a push for Zack and Aerith to get together. They just got together, and you had to deal with it, regardless of how you felt about it. And so, it really bothers me that there's such a push when a lot of other games don't. Fuck. Oh my god. When a lot of other games don't do that. That's what I was trying to say. But, you know, despite the fact that the Tifa, Aerith, Cloud thing was kind of annoying, I genuinely do enjoy the story of it, and I do enjoy the way that it's going. One thing that I honestly feel really bad about is the fight against the Genova monster or whatever that Sephiroth has. And he just kind of leaves after he brutally stabs Aerith in the back. I felt really bad. I didn't cry at all when Aerith died. I wasn't, like, I was sad, because I genuinely love Aerith. She's such a good character. She's amazing to have, like, summons on. She's an amazing healer. She's a very Yuna kind of character, and I love Yuna from 10. And so I think that's why I like Aerith so much, is because they're really similar in, like, the way they are in battle and all those things. Like, I was sad. There's my healer. There goes a character that I genuinely actually do like. But at the same time, I was really, really irritated with something else that happened. And I was just wanting things to get done and over with, and so she dies, and I'm like, oh fuck. Well, Sephiroth flies off, the Jenova monster's there, and I'm like, yeah, Jenova, what? Jenova's theme doesn't play in that battle, Aerith's theme does, and I'm not gonna lie, I probably would have cried if I wasn't so irritated. But that made me feel really horrible that I didn't actually show any, like, sadness over Aerith dying. But there was just something that had happened before. I just was so pissed off. I think it was, I kept running into monsters from the random encounter bullshit while I was trying to make my way down to where Aerith was. And I couldn't figure out where to go in the first place. And then I kept running into monsters. And I really hate that aspect of random encounters because it's so difficult to get through areas sometimes, especially when you need to be done. Like, you can set aside like 5 hours to play a game, and you can still need 6 hours to actually be able to be done with the game and to put it away. And that's the thing that really, really bothers me about role-playing games. That's honestly the only thing, though, is the amount of time. Like, you could set aside an entire day and need more than that in the end, and it's ridiculous. But other than that, I mean, there hasn't really been anything that I didn't like. The part where you're in Icicle Inn, and then you have to go into the mountains, that's actually where I've quit so far. It's pretty, I don't know. I wanted to find the snow woman because she had a summons, which, by the way, her boss battle was really easy, but her summons was really awesome. So, if you ever plan on playing 7, I'd say the original, just because I can't guarantee any of this is going to be in the remake, but if you ever plan on playing the original 7, there's some stuff that's definitely worth doing. The Wutai side mission thing, that's honestly something you want to do. Getting Vincent and Yuffie is something you want to do. They are actually really, really great. Particularly Vincent. I didn't expect to like Vincent as a fighter as much as I do. The Snow Woman thing, you'll get a holy material, or no, holy summons, I think, I don't know, but it's great. It's actually, like, really awesome. It's totally worth doing the side missions that you can and exploring as much as you can in 7, because there's lots and lots of stuff in there to come across. So other than that, I don't really have anything else that I could say about the game. I mean, it's fun. I would never say that it's not a fun game. Because, yeah, it might irritate me, but it's not like Dragon Quest VIII where it irritated me so early on. Which, what irritated me so early on about that game was just the fact that that boss battle took way more leveling up than it should have. Now I'm at a point where, honestly, it doesn't take much. But it's also, I just don't want to fucking play the game because it's getting on my nerves. All these things that should be side quests end up becoming things you have to do to beat the game. And that's just horrible. game design. At least in my opinion, it's horrible game design. It actually might be really good game design, and I'm just stupid. Who knows? I don't make games. And though I originally wanted to, I don't think I ever will. Like, genuinely, I just don't think I have the capacity to make a game. If someone wanted to me to write, like, a story for a game or something, and then, or write a story and then they adapted it into one, I don't know, maybe, I guess, I don't really know, but, other than all of the things that I've said about 7, I'm just gonna say it right now, I would definitely suggest this game to anyone who likes RPGs. If you haven't played it already, there's gonna be people who aren't gonna like it, of course. That's how everything is in this world. That's perfectly fine if you don't like it yourself, but please do try to respect the opinions of others, unless, of course, they're being disrespectful to you. Because someone does not deserve you being totally and utterly nice to them about their differing opinion when they're being an asshole to you about yours. But, like, also treat the game fairly. It is nearly 20 years old. It's not going to have the most beautiful graphics. The controls aren't going to be the most polished thing in the world. The audio is not always going to be great. You know, all these things, you can't expect them to be the most polished things ever, because it's nearly 20 years old. And you know what? You might not like the story of the game, but that doesn't mean it's a bad game. Because so many people have differing opinions on stories. Like myself, because of one particular book, I have a really hard time reading other books with female protagonists because of how poorly written this protagonist was. And I also have a really hard time with romantic subplot in novels because I've read books that have horribly developed romance in them. And so, like, that's just me, but there's lots of people who love female protagonists who are poorly written. At least, in my opinion, are poorly written. And they love those spontaneous romances that have no build-up. And that's okay. Personally, I think that's not good taste, but it's okay. That's their opinion. And that way of approaching differing opinions, especially with stories, is definitely how people should be. Because there's lots of kids in my class who absolutely adore those books that are written about, like, sports and stuff. That was, like, all they read in elementary school. I never had an interest in those. But that's what they actually read. And for me, they were reading. Like, the people who don't like reading are reading. I'm not going to judge them for what they read, because they're at least reading something. So, I guess, if you don't like the story of the game, you don't like the story of the game. If you have gripes with the way it's paced, or the way certain things are developed, that's really truly when you can criticize it. Because, you know, your personal taste for stories, that's not something you can help. And you can't help the graphics, the audio, the controls of a nearly 20-year-old game, because at that time, that was the pinnacle of gaming. But what you can help is when something is poorly paced and developed or whatever, when something is quite clearly sped through or dragging on because they needed to make the story longer. But then again, you can express your opinion whenever you want. This is just my personal opinion on this. But, yeah, other than that, I don't have anything else to say about Final Fantasy VII. I enjoy it. I know a lot of other people enjoy it, but I also know others don't. I'm personally really excited for the remake. I think it's going to be amazing. I can't wait to hear the voices, to see the cutscenes, to hear the music. I can't wait for it. And I hope that with 7 getting remade, that it's possible for other games to get remade or something, because it would be really cool if Crisis Core would get put onto the PlayStation Network so that it doesn't die off the second that this thing dies off. Because currently when it comes to games, all I truly need is this PSP to keep running well enough that I can play Crisis Core. Because even if I have to have this plugged in the entire time I am playing, I'm okay with that. Because as long as it's running, that's all I need. And I really just want Crisis Core to get to a point where more people get to enjoy it. Because Square could actually make a lot of money off it, and so could PlayStation. Sony, I believe. Because there's going to be people who are going to see Final Fantasy and are going to buy it just because it's Final Fantasy. There's going to be 7 fanboys who are going to buy it just because it's 7 related. And there's going to be people who've played Crisis Core who are going to buy it because they want it. You know, or there could be people who didn't quite like it on the PSP but have high expectations for the port onto PS4 or whatever, that get it so that they can see, you know, what it's like on a admittedly very superior system. There's a lot of money that could be made out of Crisis Core that would easily cover the costs of having to work with coding and stuff to put it onto the network. But that's just my personal opinion on Crisis Core. I honestly would love a remake of this game at some point, but who knows. Other than that, though, I think it would be really great if 8 were to get a remake, because Final Fantasy VIII got so much hate for no reason. And I can probably, well, there was a reason, but the reason was a really stupid one, and I could probably make an entire video talking about that, so I might do that. Who knows? I don't even know. I have library books that need to get returned. I need to do something about that. So, I've rambled on about the Final Fantasy franchise long enough. This will be the last video game related video probably for a while, because I'm looking around and there's some things that I can see that I want to talk about. So, there we go. The mid-thoughts on Final Fantasy VII, or whatever you want to call it, out on the table. It's going to be a while until the game is over. What I plan to do for this and any other game that I start up is to have first thoughts, mid-thoughts, and final thoughts. So first thoughts is like literally the day after I start playing it. Mid-thoughts is when I'm somewhere around where I am now, if not a little farther, depending on how long the game is. And final thoughts is, of course, after the game is said and done. And I can definitely do that for Crisis Core. I'm not going to do a final thoughts, I'm just going to do a video talking about it, and how great it is, and how underappreciated it is, and how much criticism it gets for things that you honestly can't really truly criticize, because, I mean, come on, it was 2007, and it was the PSP. Did you expect the graphics to be PS4 in 2016 quality? So, yeah. But, there's some other things that I want to make videos on. I want to do a couple rants, particularly a rant on the video game creating company called Bethesda, as well as some other things. Bethesda is the one that's on the forefront of my mind, because I have a friend who is probably going to have watched this at least once, who I've talked to about Bethesda, and this is someone who likes the games that they have, has played a decent amount of them at least, genuinely likes them for what they are, but can still, like, admit to the flaws that they have, and, like, all the points that I was making as to why I don't like Bethesda, he could agree with. So, sorry, I had to throw something away. But, like, if someone who's a fan of the company can even say that every point that I made is actually correct, that's when I pretty much realized I need to do this or I'm never gonna get it out of my system. So, I'll probably do a Bethesda rant at some point. I probably won't do a lot of rants. Just gonna say that now, there's not gonna be a lot of rant videos. I just want to do a Bethesda rant because I have some very strong feelings about Bethesda. So, that's out on the table. I've explained the game talk thought process of how I want it to work. Don't know if that's how it's gonna go, but that's the plan. When I finish 7, I do plan on going to 8, just because I've been hyping that game up so much for myself. I cannot wait to just sit down and have some fun as Squall Leonhard. But other than that, I don't really know what else to say. I will probably be making some videos on movies soon, because I've been watching lots of movies, or at least trying to get around to watching lots of movies, and I just want to talk about movies. I'm not even gonna lie, I just want to talk about movies. So, other than that, I don't have anything else to say, and so, I guess, I'll just say peace. And, the person who doesn't like peace this time is... I don't know which one's better. I'll go with this one. Prince Charming from the Shrek franchise. Because I've been watching Shrek recently, and not gonna lie, I still like those movies. They're pretty entertaining. Though I have not seen 4 fully. Is 4 good? Tell me. But yeah, peace out. Fuck ass, I read Homestuck, can you tell?